Welcome to the Therapeutic Food Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Marian Mitchell. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, therapeutic diet expert, and founder of The Road to Living Whole. There are many different diets out there. It's hard to know which one is right for you with your chronic illness and autoimmune disease. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the foundational pieces every single therapeutic diet out there shares, and also how to use the best one for your particular diagnosis. If you've been looking for a meal planning partner, help navigating the complicated healthcare system, and want to feel better quickly, I'm your girl. Grab your kombucha and notebook. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I have been looking forward to this interview for weeks. I talked about it back in October. It's Joey McDonald, and he owns Fitness Collective, and they do personal training. I went to their facility, worked out for 2 weeks, watched their trainers and working out with their clients very closely, saw clients with all different, there was some that were super senior citizens, like very frail, looking in their 90s, to post-surgery, to hardcore athletes, and then people like me that are just fit, and everything in between. And just the way they catered to their clients, everybody looked energized after. Nobody looked like they were going to throw up or pass out. And I was so impressed. And I was like, I have to pick apart this guy's brain to find out what to look for in a trainer. Because as we know, in the chronic illness world, there's a lot of personal trainers and I don't get along because they have their own prescription for weight loss and all of these things, but I'm focused on health and not necessarily, I see weight loss as a byproduct, not a goal. But also they tend to work their clients out very hard so that they get results quickly, so they keep working out with them. And in the chronic illness world, that doesn't work, because a really hard workout can lay somebody up for days at a time. And it's very frustrating for all of us. So I am so looking forward to learning from Joey right along with you. Over the years, I've worked out with good trainers and bad trainers, and I've kind of learned how to pick them out, but I don't hire them. So I don't know, I don't know exactly what to look for. So I'm so excited. But now that I've gushed, Joey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Can you tell us who you are and how you arrived to this place of owning multiple gyms and hiring these amazing trainers?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Yeah. So I started as a personal trainer almost 20 years ago now. I started in Flagstaff, Arizona, going to NAU. And I was just working at a big box gym there. I was really fortunate to be trained by a guy named Shane McDermott. And Shane was my mentor for multiple years there. And he was a Czech practitioner. And so Paul Chek really created this great approach between kind of bridging personal training and physical therapy. And so, being a really kind of young, I was 19, 20 years old, very energetic guy and very into fitness, but having somebody that could really steer me in the right direction and give me a lot of great advice in terms of just a functional approach to working out. And one of the things that really benefited me was I had a lot of back issues, even in high school. So I later on believed to have tied that to just having a gluten intolerance, and that gluten intolerance leading to gut issues, which then led to a lack of stability in my inner core, my inner unit. So transverse abdominis and so on and so forth, which just led to an instability in my low back. And so I was constantly dealing with low back pain. And Shane was really helpful to kind of help me identify that I needed to remove gluten, was a part of that process. And so at 19, that wasn't a fun thing. And I didn't want to buy into that. And then every time I did, my back would start feeling better. And I started taking this corrective approach rather than just kind of more a quote unquote bro style workout. Mm-hmm. And the more that happened, the better I felt. And so it's just kind of this positive cycle. And I started seeing the value of not only eating better, but also a functional approach to working out. So then in that process, I was still going to NAU. I went to, it was my senior year, and I went to my professor and I wanted to start my own business. And they were actually really supportive of it. I needed to do my internship, and I didn't want to do a traditional internship. I was like, hey, I want to start my own gym. And I feel like that's going to be the best real world experience I could get. And so they were very positive about me going and doing that approach. They signed off on that.
Cool.
And I'm thankful they did because I already had started that. We were in the garage of one of our clients and just kind of, getting started that way. And we started the build out in Flagstaff. 2009 is when we opened up there and started off a very small facility. And we really just started with our unique approach. So at that time, there was a lot of, we had the housing crisis. A lot of
Yeah.
people couldn't afford traditional personal training, and that just became
Hmm.
a little bit more on the expensive end. And the other alternatives were really just boot camps, group fitness, CrossFit,
Yeah.
those types of things. And so, really, what ends up happening is you get a bunch of people that just get jammed into doing the same exact workout, regardless of where your fitness level is, regardless if you have injuries, limitations, those types of things. So
Yeah.
that
I'm
really
just to
created,
interject there. I
yeah.
had a former client who tore his shoulder muscle up here, the one that connects your neck down to your shoulder.
Okay, yeah.
It got ripped in half in CrossFit
Oh my goodness.
because, they work you to exhaustion.
Yes.
And, and I hadn't, I had kind of been thinking about CrossFit, but I was like, and then that like sealed the deal for me. I was like, and then I just hear stories about that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So, okay, sorry. Anyways, keep going.
No, yeah, that's a real thing, and we definitely get a lot of our members that are coming with injuries from other places, and that
Yeah.
does happen. And so that created a little niche for us to be able to continue to try to explore, which is really doing a semi-private personal training model, but
Hmm.
really keeping it individualized. And so that took a lot of kind of figuring out how we were going to go about that and not just kind of getting pushed into, the traditional either one-on-one or group fitness. And so that actually led us to building our own software, which is a key component of how we're able to do what we do. And so we
Ah,
started making our own software back in about 2011.
okay.
And that has continued to evolve. We now have our own app, and our trainers build all of their workouts on our exercise builder and everything else. And so, yeah, we just continue to evolve the service and really just try to make it to where we can serve people at a higher level. And so now we really help people that have injuries and limitations that want to lose weight and get in shape. That's our main demographic, and
Yeah.
I see a lot of people fit in that. Most of our people are 40 plus and older. We do have a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. A lot of our members have never stepped foot into the weight room, and so we love getting someone that has never worked out before. We like to say we're a safe place for beginners,
Yeah.
and so yeah, we just like to cater to that person, really try to meet the person where they're at, and then build a workout routine designed around them.
I love this so much because I really could see that. Like I said, I saw someone, I mean, she looked like she was in her late 80s, early 90s, this
Yeah,
super frail, but in her group was also like a guy who was, I would say, probably 50s, 60s, in great shape and,
yeah,
lifting heavy. And then there was like a girl who had never worked out with a trainer in her life. And all of them had such different workouts, but all of them really catered to where they need to be and they were able to focus on form. I really loved the mobility warm up and cool down and and like I said, even the most frail by the end of the workouts looked like they enjoyed themselves. I mean, they were sweating, but
yeah.
it was like it was so cool to see such varying levels of fitness all
Mhm.
together, getting what they needed and making sure form was correct and all of that. So I think that that is so cool. Is your proprietary just to your two gyms at this time?
It is, yeah. So this is something we've invested a lot of money, a lot of time,
Yeah.
and really allows us to do what we do. But it's our own software, and is really quite a critical component. And I tell my team all the time, as good as our software is, it's only as good as the people that use it. And
Yeah.
so we can continue to make it better, and we will. But the real reason we're able to do what we do is just getting the right people in place and then training those people.
Which is exactly what I want to talk to you about today. Because I think, again, what you're doing is so cool, but I'm like, where do you find these people
Mm.
that, that are not, I mean, maybe they are personal or physical therapy trained, I don't know, but I love the semi-private aspect of it as well versus boot camp because
Yeah.
I've had my own fair share of boot camps and not the biggest fan. Just again because of varying fitness levels and like I have things like I'm pregnant with my fourth baby. Like,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. And so it's like, pelvic floor dysfunction and, like I have a knee injury from when I was figure skating when I was 11. And so
Mm,
certain exercises do weird things with one of my knees and like the questionnaire was so in depth. And then I was brand new baby pregnant. Like I had just found out I was pregnant when I started working out with your team.
mm,
And was like, hey, I know that I'm working out with machines because my daughter's 13, so I've started teaching her how to use machines and to strength train. She doesn't have the coordination to do free weights just yet. So like we're kind of doing machines. And I'm like, I know my posterior chain is like weak. And so like they really focused on that. And then they gave me a really solid foundation for how to like keep my core and like
mm.
pelvic floor all good, and it was really cool. But I could tell the difference between women and men because I had both.
Okay.
And, the guy wanted me to do something and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, I'm like, you have to modify it. He's like,
For
okay, I
sure.
wasn't sure, which is fine.
Yeah.
But he like wasn't offended at all. He didn't take an ego hit. So
Mhm.
how do you find these people and what do you look for when you're interviewing them? And what are some recommendations for people who maybe are looking for trainers?
Mm.
I know this is going to be the whole conversation. So
Sure.
this is
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of, and we'll kind of, I'm sure take a windy road to get there. But how do we find these people out in the wild?
Yeah. That's a good question. I'll start with saying how we go about that process. So we have learned the hard way. We've now, I think we're on our 16th year of business, and we've had a lot of trainers between the two locations.
Hmm.
And I've got several horror stories, in terms of just bringing on the wrong people, and not just from what the client sees and the members see, but what also goes on, behind the scenes. And obviously, we've had to take our bumps and bruises along the way. Now we have a very extensive and thorough hiring process. And so every time we would bring somebody in that wasn't a good fit, we would ask ourselves and stop and go, how did this person get in? How did
Mm.
we say yes to this? And essentially, what we do now, we usually have about 6 to 7 interviews to offer somebody a position. And so
Okay.
we are completely against the quick hiring process, the 1 to 2 interviews, and offer the job. We get multiple people involved in our hiring. I ended up stepping away of being, I used to do the majority of the hiring, and
Hmm.
just recognizing in myself that's not good. I make decisions too quickly, and I'll say yes too fast in that. I'll be too decisive. And
Hmm.
sometimes I'll just honestly, I'll talk too much in the interviews. I'm not getting the person to talk. And so that I'm thinking the interview is going great, but it's like, well, you just did most of the talking. So uh, we put Jimmy Castillo is our HR director, and he has just been a huge component to leveling up our hiring process. And so now we care much less about what the trainer knows, and we care much more about who the trainer is.
Mm.
We care about their character. We care about who they are as a person. Are they going to be, we call it the ideal team player. We got this from Patrick Lencioni. He's got a great book, The Ideal Team Player, that is kind of one of our foundational core values. And we really just try to hire off of our values. And so
Okay.
hungry, humble, and smart is basically what it is. Hungry, do they have a good work ethic? Humble, are they teachable? Are they coachable? So
Hmm.
much in the personal training field, you get people that are just really arrogant, very self-centered, very into themselves. So when someone, applies and they put their Instagram and it's just a bunch of their, photos of themselves and look at me and all this stuff in the mirror, that's not our person. And we
Hmm.
can tell really quickly they're not going to be a good fit. That's not going to be the vibe. And then smart is that last piece. And it's not just book smart, it's social smarts. Can they handle a conversation? Can they handle kind of chaos and being able to bring calmness into that environment? And so we're really picky about the type of person that we bring on character wise. And then from that point, we just do a ton of training. So a lot of my job over the last several years has been creating videos and content and training manuals. So we now have hundreds of videos that a brand new trainer will get onboarded with. And we
Mm.
have onboarding teams that we've now established that cover things from program design to exercise delivery, how do you deliver the exercise in an appropriate way? How do you check in on the exercise when the person's doing it? Load progressions, and making sure that someone's not, getting too high in their workout too quickly,
Mm-hmm.
so that we're not having those situations like you were referring to. You're not throwing up in the middle of a workout. You're
Yeah.
not debilitatingly sore for the next, week. And a lot of that is just training and development. It's really making sure that the trainer fully understands, because the issue in personal training, there are certifications. There's a lot of really good certifications you can go get. The problem is that doesn't actually mean you know anything. That means that person can pass a test, and
Mm-hmm.
that's good. But how does that look in application? And so a certification to us is just a prerequisite to even play the game. And then from there, we do all the training and development and making sure that the product we put on the floor is going to serve the member really well. But that we can't train character. And so that's
Right.
where we start there.
I love that so much, and I can see it in there. What I love about that is, I mean, you can really see that in your trainers. Like they're really easy to talk to. The camaraderie in the gym is really good, but also being able to talk to all of their clients and check in. And the load progression, that is very real because I was pushing myself and they were like, you need to take a break between sets and take
Good.
longer,
Yeah.
which really impressed me a lot. So as a client though, when we don't have all the stuff that you've developed over the years,
Mm.
one of the things that I loved about you guys was, hey, take some time to get to know us.
Hmm.
It wasn't, here's one workout. Okay, here's the plan, and this
Hmm.
is all you get. And then I have to figure out, and then I have to pay, and sometimes to get injured,
Yeah. Right.
And I found that that model was really, the 2 weeks was plenty of time for me to really get a feel
Hmm.
for the facility and also to see that I would be comfortable working out with every single trainer there. Like
Mm.
I've gotten to the point where like I work out at Mountainside Fitness and I watch the trainers working out and I can always tell the good ones from the bad ones these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
There's this one really cute chick and she had three male trainers just sitting there talking with her and I'm like, come on, you guys. Like, and like
Typical,
she's like
typical
doing stuff
gym.
wrong. I'm like, she's gonna hurt herself and I can see this, and I'm just, but they're just so busy flirting. But, it's taken me years to get to this point where I can just watch and
Hmm.
evaluate, but I also have over the years been trained how to do things right. What it feels, what it looks like to do things wrong. I've worked out with people who, one of my favorite trainers, he had injured his knee, had knee surgery like 3 times. And so he specialized in people who were post surgery,
Mm.
post PT, post surgery, and to help them rebuild and get strong again,
Yeah.
and that working out with him for like 2 years was an incredible experience and really did change the way that I looked at trainers and how I evaluated them.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just here, walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes and we're going to go work out. It was like, how do we warm up the spine and we warm up the hips and we warm up all the tendons and all of that so we don't get injured. My dad, when he was in his 40s, he started working out again and his tendon ripped from his elbow and his bicep rolled up into his
Oh
arm.
my
And
God.
apparently it's a very common thing to happen to men in their 40s. And what had happened was is he hadn't taken the time to warm up his joints before lifting heavy. He
Mm.
just went in thinking he was a 20-year-old fit guy again and started just really pushing himself and he injured himself very badly. And he does work out still to this day, but it was a really long process, right?
Mhm.
And he worked out with the PT and then he was like, they're not teaching me anything I don't already know, which I think, is kind of disappointing for him as well. Like here he is post injury and the trainers don't offer him anything, and that's when it's kind of like, so I know what to look for, but I don't know how to translate that to my clients.
Yeah, I think that there's not a clear, clean blueprint. And I think so many people, we deal with a lot of people that have shoulder issues, back, knee problems. Those things are so common, whether that's
Mhm.
from playing high school sports, whether that's from even like your dad's situation. You just get to that point, something finally gives, or you do something you probably shouldn't be doing. And now you're paying for it for the next several years. Some of the problem that people run into is you have options that are affordable and easy to get into, like Orange Theory or F45, CrossFit, those types of things.
Hmm.
And they're lower cost. The reality is that if you're doing something like that, you really should only be doing that when you don't have anything going on with your knee, your ankle, your hip, your back. There's not this chronic issue that you're dealing
Hmm.
with. You're fairly fit and you already have a pretty good baseline. And that's just kind of helping you to stay fit.
Yeah.
The issue is most people don't fit that kind of structure or that
Right.
criteria. And so then you're left to go and find a good match somewhere. And that can be really challenging. So you go to a gym and you can have, just like anything, you can have a really good chiropractor, you can have a not so good chiropractor. You have a really good PT, not so good PT, doctor,
Hmm.
so on and so forth. And the PT world or the personal training world is no different. So you can find really great trainers that know their stuff, can meet you where you're at, and then design a program specific to the issues that you're dealing with. But sometimes it can be a little bit more of a needle in a haystack type of a situation. That's part of the problem we're trying to solve, is just continuing to grow our locations and being able to scale to the point to where we can become a trusted brand that people can come in and they have those types of things and they know they're going to get good quality training at a affordable rate.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I think just trying to find those people and looking for, one, do I fit well with a person? Like, do we jive
Hmm.
really well? Do I like the way that they're going to push me and motivate me? Because that is a big deal. If you don't
Yeah.
connect with your personal trainer, that is a problem. It is personal training, and so you want that connection. That's really important.
Yeah, just to interject, I know a lot of people think that like, oh, if they're gonna push me hard, that's what I need. So I want somebody
Mm,
who's like gonna just push me, push me, push me,
yeah,
not realizing that slow and steady wins the race.
right.
So I think some really good trainers get dismissed because your first month of workouts are really, really light.
Yeah,
And they're figuring out where your weak areas are. They're figuring out they're warming up your joints.
yeah, yeah.
They're seeing what your spinal mobility is. They're checking out, because I mean, one of the things I learned over the years was to learn if your knees bend in a squat versus bend out and what that means. But that took me finding trainers that I could dialogue with and were not threatened by my questions. And they just explained and
Yeah.
explained and explained. And then I was also a teachable person as a client. So, like, if my knees bent in a little bit, they would tell me, hey, we need to make adjustments. And then I would ask why.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Where is the weakness in me? And I think a lot of people, what I've found is people need permission to be able to ask questions.
Hmm.
And they also need somebody who's willing to teach them about their own body. I
Hmm.
think what I've seen, and I don't know if this is true, but just like this is my interpretation of the information that I receive, is that they don't want to teach because then that means they might work themselves out of a job. Like if a
Mm-hmm.
client can train themselves and can identify their own weaknesses, then what do they need to pay, $700 a month for?
Yeah.
Which I mean, personal training one-on-one is, I mean, back when I did it in 2009 was, I think it was 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and I was paying like $550.
Yeah.
It's only gonna, I mean, that was 2009, so I can only imagine what it is now.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and through that I was at a box gym, so like I had the trainer that I liked and then he moved on, and so I got another one, and turned out that that trainer, while he was a good trainer, he was poor at nutrition, so he had me under eating. And then this other trainer sat me down and like put in like all my measurements. We did my body fat, and then he was like, you're under eating by like 400 calories a day, which was like mind blowing and super exciting because I was so
Yeah.
hungry
You're
all the
like, all
time.
right.
Yeah. Like I was so tired of being hungry, and I'm not a very nice person when I'm hungry. And so like here I am, like 5'1", 115 pounds, and they're like, you need like 1,800 calories a day. And I've been at 1,200.
Oh, wow.
And then when I jumped up, my muscle growth in a month was like insane.
Mhm.
Like it was really cool. And so, it's just kind of, it is that trial and error thing. They were all good trainers, but through that process, I had to learn what to look for. So I think that character is probably a really good one because you want somebody that can tell you from the beginning, they're willing to teach you.
Yeah.
They're, willing to explain, hey, we're going light because I need to identify these things and see where you're at. And I don't want you to be sore for all this time. But also to find someone who's willing to listen. Like
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, you need a trainer I'm like, they need to respect the fact that you don't need diet help.
Hmm.
And that's really hard to find.
Hmm.
Like they all want to kind of interject. And like I have some people who are brand new to eating healthy and they're like, I can't believe they'll email me and be like, I can't believe you're letting them eat ketchup with their chicken. And I'm like, they're like, do you know how much sugar is in ketchup? And I'm like, do you know how much sugar is in a Snickers? Like, give me a freaking break. Like,
That's right.
and I'm like, they're brand new to this. Like, let's make sure they can eat the food that's coming in and they like it
Yeah,
before we
baby
start.
steps.
Yeah, I'm like, boiled chicken and steamed broccoli and brown rice does not taste very good, my guy.
Yeah,
Like, but also like I know that I'm dealing with chronic illness stuff, so don't touch their diet.
yeah,
I will throat punch you. Like, you stay in your lane, I'll stay in mine.
yeah.
And then, but I also think, so here's one question that I have that maybe we can empower people
Mm,
is to be willing to one speak up. Hey, I have these injuries, and so because like it's kind of like when you go to the doctor and like, do you take any medications? No, and then they're like, well, it says here that you take this, this, and this. Oh yeah, that's for my cholesterol. That's for my and
yeah,
my blood sugar, and it's like those are medications and stuff. So I think a lot of people don't speak up, but also like I have people dealing with mold illness and
yeah.
histamine intolerance and Lyme disease and candida and hormone issues. Like when I turned 37, it was post COVID. In 3 months, I gained 25 pounds. It was insane. I hadn't
Mm,
changed the way that I ate. I hadn't changed that I worked the way I was working out. I had been the same weight for a decade. And
wow.
then all of a sudden I was like 25, 30 pounds heavier. And I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Well, my hormones were crashing. My thyroid was crashing. Probably some of it was probably post-COVID, and COVID probably pushed me into perimenopause a little
Mm,
more abruptly than it could have been, just from what we know about COVID and how it attacks the ovaries. But and then just recently at one of my appointments, there was this midwife who's very clinical in her approach, and she was like, "Well, your weight's a little high, so you're probably diabetic." And I was like, what?" And she's like, well, it's just based on a guideline. And I'm like, okay, if I wanted to be treated by a guideline, I would have gone to an OB down the street. Like, and so I think that that also can translate into personal training is like people get really comfortable with what they're comfortable with
yeah.
and not what is best for the client. And so I find from a client perspective, if I have somebody who's willing to teach me and dialogue with me throughout my workout, not just gossip, but like, hey, your knee's doing this, or when you do this, do you feel this? This is why. Like that type of stuff for me, that's when I know I'm working out with a good trainer because they're willing to teach me how to work out and not injure myself. Do you find that to be true?
100%. I mean, you said it really well, is sometimes people can be concerned, trainers or any profession, that you're going to teach yourself out of a job or you're going to teach yourself out of losing that client or that member. We take a totally different approach with that. To me, I feel like we just want to educate, educate, educate. And the reality is that the more that we educate well and we do it in a way that the person can understand it and it makes sense to them, they also are going to see the value in what you bring in the first place.
Yep.
And so then it's like, okay, you one, you know what you're talking about. Two, you're willing to help me and take the time to teach. And then we can even get more out of that because half the
Mhm.
battle is just one showing up to the gym. So
Yeah.
get to the gym and having an appointment. And our members benefit greatly from just having a person that's counting on them and waiting for them to show up at their time. But then you get there and it's like, okay, well, now we want to make sure we actually have a good workout and
Yeah.
we're doing the right things and we're not doing the wrong things. And we're doing it in a way that's going to make the most sense for you and at the intensity level that you have, at the functional
Yeah.
capability that you have. So can your body move in these ways rather than forcing certain movements? Even stuff like, doing an overhead press. So many people can't do an overhead press and it has nothing to do with their shoulders. It has everything to do with the fact that they don't have enough spinal mobility. And so we have to focus on thoracic mobility in order to, get the bar over their head properly without it hurting them. And so it's a lot of teaching. And so kind of like what you were referring to earlier, a good trainer can get kind of overlooked in that first month because they're trying to build a foundation so that they can,
Hmm.
push the person into a little bit more intensity. But part of the practitioner's job at that point is explaining that and
Yeah.
teaching that. Because if they don't do that, if you don't get buy-in to the client that, hey, this is why we're doing it, and you just go about it, they want to be pushed. And instead you're trying to, open up this joint or that, and you're not explaining that process, you will lose that person because they're going to be frustrated with it.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge part of that process, is just really teaching. And kind of like what you referenced earlier, that, when you were at our gym, you saw, okay, the guy wanted to give you this exercise and you said, well, I can't do that. We really try to have it to where we understand we're going to have a plan. We pre-plan all of the workouts before you come in. And then we're going to have to alter that a little bit. Someone's going to say, oh, yeah, this isn't quite feeling right, or this is hurting. And that's where you have to listen. You have to understand what's going on and then make the adjustments. And there's certain things where we do need to push the person outside of their
Yeah.
comfort zone and go, I know you just don't like to do lunges, but we're still going to do those anyways. But there's also times where it's like, yeah, that's not going to be helpful to the long term, or potentially the detriment of your knee or your back or whatever. And so we do need to make some adjustments here and
Yeah.
just listen and then teach and really kind of explain some of that why.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's how I've kind of found those good trainers is like the people
Mhm.
who are just willing to explain like, hey, I'm not comfortable with us doing this move just yet because your thoracic mobility is limited and it could injure
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
Like I like just explaining that, there's just so much respect there. And if a client is going to want to be pushed and injure themselves, you can say, I don't think we're a good fit because
Yeah.
I cannot in good in my integrity allow you to injure yourself under my supervision,
Yes.
you know? And I find that I'm also a sign language interpreter. I do it
Oh,
very
wow.
part-time now, but that was my main career for a long time. And I did something called VRS. And sometimes people didn't like the information they were hearing and would say, oh, this interpreter sucks. And I would
Mhm.
be like, hold on, like, we're a team here,
Mhm.
And it really kind of taught me to be assertive in general.
Yeah.
And and I used to be the type of person I didn't like conflict. I didn't like confrontation,
Mhm.
but really you have to, as a client, be willing to speak up, but also as a trainer, be willing to speak up and allow people to walk away if they're not a good
Yeah.
fit,
Yeah.
and I think there's always this fear of, if I don't have this client, how am I going to pay my bills or how am I going to do
Yeah.
this? And so you allow yourself to bring on clients that are not a good fit, that
Mhm.
are not a good fit. But also, it's okay to recognize that maybe this isn't your skill set. Maybe you want the gym bro who wants to be in a fitness competition and not the mom with chronic illness who can only do 15 minutes and before, for the first month of her workout because it makes her too tired. And it's like, there has to be some recognition, but as a client, you have to be willing to speak up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you have to be willing to ask questions because that's the only way you're going to find out if they're a good fit or not, instead of just sucking it up and pushing through and then laying on the couch for 4 days because you can't move. Like
Totally.
that's not helpful to anybody. But I do like the character is huge. Like my cousin has been working out with the same trainer for like 2 years. She's lost like 8 pounds in the whole time. But she shows up her twice a week appointment and they chit chat and stuff. But then she's learned, she's like, oh, when she brings out that weighted ball, I know I'm going to be sore tomorrow, you know? And so she's still progressing.
Yeah.
She has a ton of other health stuff going on. So weight loss is something that she wants, but weight loss is so complex. And I feel like good trainers also recognize that weight loss is a byproduct, not a goal.
Mhm.
At least that's how I feel. That's what I've noticed with the best trainers is weight loss is not the goal.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's multiple things that you just hit on there that I would like to speak into, and part of that is even just the kind of going back to the relationship of the client and the trainer. And I do think that it's a two-sided thing. And we've had clients that we have had to release and go, we're not a good fit. We've had, the woman that you kind of referenced or example was, she had this hip issue that she really needed to work on and to do a lot of strengthening, mobilizing. She was in like limping into the gym, but
Mm,
then she's reading these books and podcasts and she's wanting to push through it and do things that she shouldn't be doing. And she was really trying to force our hand of like, no, but I still want to do this. And we just had to tell her, like, we're not going to hurt you. We are purposefully now going to, this is negligence if we allow you to do this. So we can't do that.
mm,
And she didn't want to have that. And that's fine. She, limped her way to another gym, and that's okay. And we've
Yeah.
also had it where we have, we have a very positive environment, and that's one of our values is find the positives, and we try to have, we know a large part of that is how we show up as trainers, but it also impacts the way the members show up and
Hmm.
the experience that they have together. And we've had situations where sometimes things can go bad, things can get a little bit toxic, and sometimes we just have to have those conversations and really try to, one of our guiding principles is, we create or allow the culture we have. We create or allow the culture we have. So if we allow someone to be gossiping and pass all this negativity and toxicity, we're allowing that versus creating it and just having the hard conversation and going, okay, this is seems like you're a little frustrated. Let's talk about that. What's going
Hmm.
on? And then can we resolve that, or do we need to go a different route? And so sometimes you need to break up on either side of that, and that's okay. Not everybody's a
Yeah.
great fit. And then to speak to just the idea that training is only about weight loss can get a really bad rep. And I think that we love helping people lose weight. And so many people do need to lose weight, and they would be healthier. They're going to enjoy their life more. If you think about, taking off an extra 20 pounds, and you put a 20-pound dumbbell in somebody's hand and say, okay, now you're not walking around with this all day long, every
Yeah.
day. Yes, that will impact your life. And so that is a great goal to be having. But there's so many other benefits to weight training. And sometimes even like, I don't remember if you said it was your friend or your sister that's seen the trainer for 2 years and only lost 8 pounds. That's okay. Because where would they be if they hadn't been doing that? And how much muscle would they have lost during that time? How much strength would they have lost? Because after 26, we start declining significantly in the sense of power, strength, and just overall muscle mass. And so your
Hmm.
power, you can lose as much as 8% year over year. And power is going to be like that fast twitch
Hmm.
movement. So think about sprinting, think about squatting really fast, jumping, those types of things. Well, we typically don't do that a lot in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so we start to convert what's called fast twitch fibers into slow twitch fibers. And so we start to lose some of that edge. Well, why that's important is because later on in life, when you're, 60, 70 years old, and, especially in Flagstaff, for our Flagstaff members, you go step on the ice, you want to be able to react and respond when you're
Yeah.
going out in the snow. And if you have more fast twitch fibers, you're going to be able to respond a little bit better from falling and catching yourself. And obviously that plays out in multiple different things, from even
Yeah.
just playing with your grandkids or those types of things. And
Yeah.
same thing when you start looking at strength, I believe you start to lose, 2 to 4% per year if you're not really actively combating that. And so even though the person may not be losing as much weight as they want to, the fact that they're in the gym, that they're pushing, their strength, that they're keeping stability in their joints, it plays such a huge role in aging well and not just living longer, but living a higher quality life, which is what so many people really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And how else do you find a trainer than to ask them those questions, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because it is so true. Like what I've really learned over the years is if they focus on weight loss, they're not going to be a good fit for most people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll be a good fit for people who want to lose weight fast, but
Yep.
they're not going to be a good fit for people who want to be healthy.
Yes. Yeah.
I've been working out since I was, I think, 15. I was started, I was kind of the fat kid
Mm.
who decided one day, I think I had an ovarian cyst burst and I was in the hospital for 3 days and I lost like 10
Oh my
pounds. And then I
goodness.
was like, I want to keep it off. So I started like running the bleachers with friends. And then I got into strength training. Senior year, I went to college part-time, so I took a gym class. And and so then I was like the cardio queen all through college,
Okay.
and then after my son was born is when I met the first trainer. And then like what it was is they would like offer free ones. And then the trainers were it was a smaller gym. So then they would just chat with members, right? And then they would be like, here, let's just do a free workout. I'm bored, and then like I ended up hiring them, right? So they kind of played the long game.
Sure. Yeah.
And then through that process, like just getting stronger and like I had lower back pain from weak abs from having the baby and not we're doing my core properly. And I was having this lower back pain. I finally asked the trainer, I'm like, why is my back hurting? Well, turned out I wasn't working my posterior train. I was using machines and not weights and and all of that stuff
Yeah.
and it was just through the process. But then as you go through life and I'm 41 now,
Mm.
right? And I have been working out consistently since I was 15. And I can see a difference between me and my peers who don't.
Yeah. 100.
I can sprint. I can keep up with my kids. I have a almost 2-year-old. I can keep up with her just fine, and that little girl is fast. And I can just really see a difference even in like quality of skin and
Hmm.
aging, not just like physical ability, but externally. And
Hmm.
I don't need all of the $200 skincare.
Yeah.
And I really take that to the fact that I've been consistently active. And even with my hormone stuff, I'm finally on thyroid meds and HRT. And I'd lost 3 pounds, but I had lost a pant size before I got pregnant with this one. And I was thrilled because it's really frustrating when you're working out 4 days a week for 45 minutes to an hour at a time and nothing is happening.
Yeah.
Right. But then if you have a trainer who recognizes like, hey, you may not be losing the weight, there's probably other stuff going on, or we know there's other stuff going on, but fast twitch fibers and, longevity and mobility and all of that. And like really having the focus of my goal has always been, I want to be able to keep up with my kid. My firstborn was a fast runner too. And then he would fight when I caught up to him. So I had to be able to not only keep up, catch him as he took off, but I also had to be able to hold him as he was fighting me, trying to get away.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I want to be able to like carry all my groceries in one trip. I want to be able to functionally live life. And
Hmm.
so, as I was talking to trainers, again, just because I was friends with all of them, I kind of learned the words to use to communicate what I needed. And I find that that is also really helpful. Like I want to be able to be mobile. I want functional conditioning. I want to be able to pick up my grandkids when I'm 90. I want to live until I'm 90 and have a
Yeah.
good quality of life and not be in a home wasting away in a chair and in a room I don't recognize, right?
Yeah.
My grandma's going to be 90 this year, and she did yoga up until her late 60s, and then she lived in a two-story house with a basement. So her bedroom was on the second floor and laundry was in the basement. So she was doing stairs all the time, and she's like that has to be why I'm still independent at
Yeah.
89, and driving. She's still, I mean, she doesn't drive in traffic, she doesn't drive at night, but she drives herself to and from the store and, to and from my parents' house. And she's got all of her wits about her. And like she's always said, like she's always ate really well and she's never stopped moving.
Awesome.
And it's just so cool to see. And I'm like, that's what I want. And my family on my mom's side tends to live until their late 90s. And,
Mhm.
and I'm like, that's what I want.
And you want a high quality of life when you're
Yes,
there.
I
You
want
don't
to
want to
I want to
be,
wear out.
yeah.
I don't want to die off. I want to
Yeah.
like my Annie was like 96 or 97. She walked her mile on her treadmill and then boom, her heart stopped.
Oh my goodness.
And like there was no pain. She was just gone.
Yeah.
I mean, up until she was in her late 80s, she was walking 5 miles a day, 2.5 miles in the morning, 2.5 miles in the afternoon. And everybody knew her because they just watch her with her little walker walking around the neighborhood.
That's so great.
And so like I have these amazing role models who you just don't stop moving.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with chronic illness and walking, I mean, you can walk 10 minutes and then need a 3-hour nap.
Hmm.
But you know that like when we know like okay, we're hearing all these people say we have to, muscle mass and all this stuff and it's like, well, how do I do that and not kill myself? You
Yeah.
know? And finding a trainer that recognizes that that's been my struggle as a health coach is how do I help them find somebody who will actually help them?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have people that have Parkinson's, that have MS, that have all sorts of chronic illnesses that
Hmm.
are debilitating for their life or can be,
Hmm.
that they're fighting against that and continuing to try to like fight for the quality of life that they have. And, unfortunately, we live in the social media age where you go online and you see what you could look like or what you feel like, quote unquote, you should look like. And those can be such toxic mental spaces for us to get into. And what people really don't have the benefit of is being able to see a true side by side comparison of yourself of
Yeah.
this is the life I've chosen and this is what I've done. And so yeah, I may not have, six pack abs or whatever it is that you really want aesthetically, but you also don't get to see the inverse version of yourself of not
Yeah.
having worked out for the past 10 years versus you did work out and made better food choices. And,
Yeah.
we're able to do some of these activities. And, my parents are both in their 70s. We started having them work out several years ago. My dad was extremely unhealthy when I was growing up. He was 240 pounds, 5'10", would consistently as a child. I remember he would have a half gallon of ice cream and he would take the lid off and just throw it out because he was going to eat the whole thing right there. And that would be like multiple times a week. He ended up losing 70 pounds and has kept it off now for the past, 12, 13 years. And my mom is extremely active. She works out at our gym twice a week. She's strong. She's capable. She does all this stuff on her own. And I lovingly tell them, I love you guys so much, but neither one of you are living with me. And so I want them to stay strong and independent, very active. And so I think that, when it comes down to finding a trainer, you have to look for some of those key components. Are you finding someone that you can mesh with that's going to listen to you, and is going to hear you out? Do you feel like you connect with their personality? And then even just trying to better understand the approach that they're going to take with your workouts and making sure that aligns with your overall goals. A helpful thing is to watch if you can see, them train some of their other clients that look different than you. Do the workouts look different? Because if the workout looks the same, you're probably not working with someone you should be working with.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you're 65 and you're watching your trainer train a 40-year-old, and both of those workouts are, the exercises seem the same, the theme of the workout seems the same, the way he approaches or she approaches you feels the same, might be time to look for somebody else.
That is solid advice right there. Yeah. And like I said, in your facility, I could see even with the semi-private, so there's 3 or 4 clients per trainer. And every workout was different. Every approach was different. Like I
Mhm.
said, I watched them fix form. I watched them explain things. I watched somebody say, "Hey, this doesn't feel right,"
Yeah.
and then them watch and then do it. Okay, we're gonna do something different that works the same muscles. So that
Yeah.
flexibility in there. So, and that's why I was just so impressed because I was like, I have to know. So I feel like that's such great advice. Now, if somebody is in Arizona
Hmm.
and so the location in Phoenix is in North Phoenix, across from PV Mall, uh,
Hmm.
or what was PV Mall. And anybody my age or will know exactly where that is. And then in Flagstaff, where are you located?
Yeah, so we're located in Flagstaff is just kind of like we use buildings, right? Not a big,
Yeah.
not a big town. So
Yeah.
we're next to Staples across the street from Walmart on the west side of town. It's
I
called
know
Fitness
exactly where
Collective.
that is.
Yes. Yeah, Fitness Collective and Cactus and Tatum here in the Valley. And, like you said, personal training is not the cheapest thing, right? Like our
Yeah.
one-on-one service, if you're training with us one-on-one, it's $110 a session. So we're not the
Hmm.
cheapest, but we know what our quality is. We know the value we
Yeah.
bring. But our semi-private, and this is where there's so much value, our semi-private, you can come and train with us and get that type of a workout for $30 a session.
Yeah.
So it's much more affordable. You're sharing your trainer, but you're still getting a completely individualized workout to you. You do have that set appointment. You work with different trainers, and so that way we take each person kind of has their own feel and vibe, and each person gets
Yeah.
their own what we call a fitness coordinator, and so they oversee your splits, your styles, meaning what are your workouts going to look like on a day to day? Are you focused on upper body, full body, lower body? Do we need to
Hmm.
do some stretch and mobility? What injuries, limitations are we working with? They check in with you each month and just making sure that your profile is staying up to date within the software so that when we do train you, we're training with the most up-to-date information. And so yeah, we love what we do and we love the people we get to serve.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to connect people with you. You guys are definitely my go-to in the different parts of the Arizona. I work with people all over the country though, and so I think we've really given people something to really chew on, especially going into the new year. And, everybody's, oh, I'm going to be fit this year. I feel
Yeah.
like we've addressed mindset on like really what's most important. Weight loss. I always feel like weight loss is a side effect, not a goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and I also, I mean, just to kind of go, talk social media and stuff, like every body is different.
100%.
Like I am petite, and even when I was a size two, I did not look thin, so
Mm.
to speak. Like
Mhm.
I've always been curvy, I've always been a little squishy, and in the times that I wasn't was when I was sick, right? But
Mm.
then I have a friend who's 5'2" and 100 pounds and also healthy,
Yeah.
and then I have a friend who did like bodybuilding competitions and she was not petite at all,
Yeah.
and she was super fit, but she still looked big. And it's like just honoring your body. And I think that the health driven versus the body image driven is such a healthy way to go. And then just as a woman, I've learned that guys really don't care that much. Like, like
It's true.
like we think that, oh, that we have to look like a model to get a guy. And my husband, he's like, you are perfect just the way that you are. You don't need to lose weight. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, but but like he does not. He's like, I love you the way that you are, and he met me at my biggest. And so he loves me exactly as I am. And it's still just kind of weird to me that like that can be attractive, and it's,
Absolutely. The truth of it is that every body type has its own just kind of like look and appeal, and it's leaning into that. It's recognizing this is my body type,
yeah,
and God gave us the ability to make all of those look good. And so
yeah,
it's not like wishing, we have to get out of that comparison, which
hmm,
is, can just steal so much joy, and instead just lean into what you have. And so if you have a more lean, slender, more rail type, okay, that's great. You can look great in that way, and you can add a little muscle, and that can be
yeah,
really helpful. If you are more curvy, then leaning into those curves and being able to, shape your body in a way that you feel is going to kind of
yeah. And
help with that. Yeah.
it's like when we feel strong, looks don't matter. How we feel we look compared to others really doesn't matter because like being able to like when I was the first time I was able to lift go back to my like oh my gosh, my super fit where I was like 170 pound squat, like I
Mm,
was thrilled. Did my body look like it did when I did that the first time? No, but that's okay. Like I
yeah.
could still do it,
Yeah.
And again, like that whole I can still keep up with my 1-year-old at 41. Getting off
Yeah.
of the floor is a little bit harder these days. My knees are I definitely feel my age in my knees, right?
For sure.
But it's like I also know, I probably need to work on my hamstrings a little more.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's kind of like, and then I remember talking to Jenny. I actually think it was her husband. I don't remember. I was talking to one of them and I was having a lot of hip pain and there or a lot of like certain pain in my legs. And they're like, if your hips are off, that can cause that pain. Well, I ended up buying a new mattress and that fixed the pain that I was
Oh
having.
my
And I
gosh,
was
that's
like,
great.
and I was
I
just
hear
like,
that.
oh, it was my hips were because of the mattress we had was so old and like, so like we got a new mattress and my husband's back pain got better and my pain went away. And I was like, well, there you go, right? And it's kind of like things like that. And again, that's where the conversation and being teachable on both sides is so important,
It is.
you know? All right, so maybe if somebody, Arizona's pretty, we get all the snowbirds and
Yeah.
stuff. So do you allow drop-ins and
Yeah, so if you're not from Arizona, we actually have our virtual platform. So the software that we made, we do have our own mobile app, Fitness
awesome.
Collective. You can just go on to Google Play Store or the App Store, and you can download it there. And we can train you virtually, and we still then make it completely to you. So we're going to work with the equipment you have, even if you're just working at home. A real trainer will be writing your workouts and corresponding with you, and we obviously want to work within your functional capabilities
I
and
love
what you
that.
have available to you. If you have injuries limitations, that's not a deal breaker for us. That's something that we want to then help with. So we can do it that way. We do offer drop-ins, and yeah, of course, if you want to come and see us, you can reach out to us online, and we would love to connect.
Awesome. Well, I love that people all over the country can access
Yeah.
your trainers. that is amazing. And so I know I'm really excited because I actually have a resource for everybody. Like, this is how much I support you guys. Because again, I'm so impressed with the quality of your trainers. I'm
Thank
impressed
you.
with your software. That kind of explains why they were looking at laptops.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, oh, I was like, oh, maybe they have like a spreadsheet or something, but no, it's an actual app,
Yeah.
which I think
Track
is
all your
amazing.
weights.
And
Yeah.
I love that there's a coordinator over the clients to make sure they're up to date all the time.
Yeah.
I love all of that. I don't endorse very many companies or
Mm.
people but I am fully behind Fitness Collective because what you guys do and the way that you're able to help people is so unique. And so thank you so much again for coming on the podcast
Yeah,
for
my pleasure.
so people could get to know you and to get some insight onto how to find a quality trainer and to be a resource for my people. I'm so excited.
Absolutely.
And so if you can, I'll make sure all of the links are in the show notes. That way everybody can access them. And I do say if you're in Phoenix and you're looking for a gym to work out while you're here, highly recommend dropping in, checking them out. And yeah, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. It was my pleasure. And yeah, love the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you found this episode helpful, would you do me a favor and help others find it by leaving a review, sharing a screenshot on social media, or sharing the link with a friend? By you sharing what you've learned, others are able to find this podcast and join our community. Be sure to check out my website, www.roadtolivinghole.com, for over 160 delicious recipes, a variety of meal plans, and a blog packed full of even more healthy living tips. If you'd like to learn more about how to work with me as your coach, you can schedule a free consult through www.roadtolivinghole.com/health-coaching/. Until next time, friend. Bye.